Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Wow, it feels so official to have principals here and everything. We can introduce ourselves just because, you know, it's the first time. I'm Joe Winrick. I'm the chair. I think you all know me. At least most of you. And then we can start on end with Leanne.
Hi, Leanne Gilson. Hi.
Ken McFadden, Newfane.
Mike Foley, at-large member from Townsend.
Al Clausen, Townsend.
Emily Long, Newfane.
Bill Antone, superintendent.
Trish Scott, at-large member.
Lindsay Bertram, Newfane.
Okay, we're missing our Jamaica contingent tonight. So Drew's not here. And what? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. No one spoke. I just kept going. It's been a long day. I'm really sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Pam Bernardo. I am the part-time principal at Jamaica Village School and the Dean of Academics at Liberty Rec.
Bob Tebow, we doing great.
Craig Roach, principal of Townsend.
Johanna Laskowski, Dean of Students at Leland
Rick, you want to join?
I'm Rick Hagan, I'm just sitting here.
Not so. This is our district treasurer.
But you do it well.
All right, so I think we got everybody now. I apologize again. It has really been a long Monday. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda, folks? Anything? Okay. Rick, you want to be a member of the public?
I got nothing.
You got nothing? Okay. Yeah. Okay, for correspondence, anybody have any correspondence? Nope. You do not have any? Okay. I do not have any either. Okay, so old business. I know in the packet of things that we sent, there was the sort of working draft proposed agenda for the retreat. It was really just sort of an FYI. If there's anything that you think got missed or needs to be added or fleshed out, now would be the time to comment on it. Otherwise, we're Townsend Town Hall, September 4th, all day.
And food will be provided. The the West River Chefery will be taking care of you.
West River Chefery, I like that. And I was asked tonight if we were having that filmed like we did last year. I think the answer is yes, right? We want to have our retreat filmed?
I think so.
I would think so. I mean, I was going to check with you all during the meeting, and then, yes, please.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so there's been some discussion of principal advisory committees, and I know that Townsend had one last year as sort of a pilot that Craig and his committee were working on, and then last May, right? You came and gave us the PowerPoint presentation, which is all duplicated in here, sort of how it was functioning at Townsend and what it did and what its role did. Now this year, as these other committees are going to be forming, we've sort of said all along that these are building-based committees, but just to give some sort of guidance from the board's perspective as to what we sort of expect and what we sort of what the thing is. I mean, I think we need to make it a little bit clear that we're not forming another school board, that these committees aren't actually running anything, that they're really advisory, and that they're, you know, working with the principal, and that their feedback is going to come to the board, but it's not creating another position on the board, or, you know, it's just a conduit for information. And I think, you know, it'd be helpful to kind of sort of, that's just my opinion, sort of as how these things have evolved and how they're sort of functioning. But I wanted to just discuss it quickly so that everybody was on the same page, so that as these things form, we don't end up with people saying, well, I thought if this advisory committee said we wanted to do this, that it was going to happen, versus it's not a guarantee that anything's going to necessarily be done. It's just a voice. So, thoughts? Yes, Bill.
I would encourage you to keep page 2 with you.
This one?
Yes. I think that it's just a nice document to point back to.
And the last one says it's a non-evaluative, non-personnel, topic-centered, encouraging, helpful, positive group that provides insight on an advisory level to the building principal. It does, which then comes back up to the board. It's not necessarily a conduit. The board doesn't even necessarily work directly with these committees. Just another bit of clarity for these committees as they go together. Anybody want to add to that?
Just, I just want to state something, and if it's not accurate, I'll hear pushback. For me, we call these principal advisory committees, and I think that's absolutely accurate. My hope is that this is that the conduit that we're talking about is from community to school, with all the little pieces of what community means. So one of the areas where I've always felt like we haven't established the support and the connection that we need is to our sending communities. And that's what my hope is, that these committees will be absolutely that. Whether it's our school community, whether it's our community proper, whether it's our parents, whatever it is, we just need to make that connection between our communities so that we can get more understanding of the work that we do and hopefully less confusion around things that come up, in our communities. So that's what I'm hoping, and I would love to hear if people are thinking something different. I think these are wonderful. This is a great opportunity for us, and that's how I see it.
Makes sense to me. Anyone? Principals, you want to, as you get these things put together?
No, I think she said like if we disagree with what you had mentioned, we can speak out. But no, I think that's exactly the intention is to have a community outreach for the people who aren't necessarily connected to the schools, business members, people who just live in the area, people who don't have kids or grandkids in the schools anymore. But also the people who are directly connected, and they have a way for the schools to see how we're making decisions inside the school. And my PAC, I know I'm a year into it, so I'm very excited about going into year 2, especially with what we're doing here, to use them as a sounding board and say, my decisions are never any easy decisions, but it has to go through 3, 4, 5, 6 people who have different opinions, and we take that advice and sit on it for a little bit, and then we come back and we make a decision on it. So I think it's a really great two-way street to hear what the community wants and actually see what our lives are like inside of our schools. So that's the goal, to really extend out. And I think what Bob's going to be trying to do with the students working and doing place-based and project-based and trying to fit that in. Now we're going to try to extend out and put the Leland and Gray High School and middle school students out to the public to earn their credits and everything else. So I think it's the start of it.
Great, thank you.
I would also just want to add that I think it's a good way for every building to make sure that you use that as a sounding board for what each individual school's building's climate culture is and how your people want it, what kind of climate they want.
Keep some level of individuality.
Yeah.
I was going to say that Craig lent to us or shared with us all the work he had done last year, and Craig's pretty thorough, and his materials were really nice. And as I put mine together for my meeting this week, I realized that in the past I've been pretty peerless as a principal. I mean, I've always had a mentor assigned by the state, and I've also had my superintendent. But this year I'm going to have my PAC, but I'm also going to have my fellow principals that we're peers now, much more so than we have been in the past. So I'm really looking forward to having some people to bounce ideas off of, because some of the things that we're working on, it wouldn't be appropriate maybe to bounce those ideas off, just any old Joe. Like, it should be somebody who's really been checking things out. So I'm really looking forward to that work and to working further with my peers here.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. We can always discuss that further as it goes along. And we will, I'm sure. I'm told. So the next item was the student board members. I think you all have the memo that Bob had sent around talking about student representation on the board. And I know we had talked about this early on as something that we all agreed in principle was a good idea. I think this memo does a pretty good job of breaking things down. The question, the real question is, beyond what's in print here, how much more do we as a board need to have documented to feel comfortable with having a couple of students participate in meetings? They're non-voting members, they're purely advisory. I really like the part, having served on the Leland and Gray board and having had students for a number of years, I really like the last piece of this with the mentoring and sort of letting them, getting them more involved in the why and the decision making, and less of the sort of anecdotal report like, oh, it's prom and we raised funds and the teams are doing well. I mean, that's all information that's fun to have.
Yep.
But really, if you want to serve on the board, we ought to give you a glimpse behind the curtain and really try and involve you and solicit your opinion and stuff. So I thought that was great.
So my thing, there's two things I want to say about this. One, the ironic thing is, so I called VSBA and the VPA asking for suggestions and advice on how to proceed with this. And this was right before Nicole was leaving the VSBA, but she directed me to this great guide that they had created. And so I read the guide and looked at it, and then in the back there's a list of contributors. And many of you people were contributors in that, including the principal at the time, several students, staff members, I think Emily, Joe, Stephen. I'm trying to think of if there's anyone else from this board.
The students were Janina and maybe Evan Riley, and I think Sam.
Julian.
Oh, was Julian on that too?
Yeah. Anyway, so when I realized that like a quarter of the people who made recommendations to this guide were actually Leland and Gray connected, I thought, well, this board this should be nothing new.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. And then the second piece where I expanded from this was to think about how I could work with these kids, if you guys approve this, to try to give them some sort of, I'm going to call it independent study, where I would meet with them and prep them before each board meeting, and then we would meet after and debrief it, and then we would fill those gaps with enough material to make it a credit-bearing course on school governance. And they would get all these elements of the things that you listed at the bottom, the mentoring pieces, would all be part of the curriculum. So if these students would come out of this experience, particularly after 2 years, of really understanding sort of the political side of what a board does, budget process, and just I remember staying with Pam, she came about the difference, what's an SU and what's a district. Just some of the political divisions and how these things are set up is confusing to adults, never mind kids. So to be able to have that explanation for them, I think would be cool. So that was my thinking, that they would do that. And then part of it, I was hoping that we could, if there was a contingent going to the VSBA conference yearly, that those kids would also be invited to go. And even though they wouldn't be able to vote, I did note in here that sometimes the symbolic votes are important to get their vote, record it, even if it's not counting in the official capacity. I think that there's a sense of ownership there. And the last piece, and I'll obviously be coming to meetings with the kids, is that I would hope that the board would engage them on things other than, well, how was the prom? So, what do you think about this? We're at a budget season and we're talking about class sizes, and are we going to run an AP program or what have you? And there's discussion, like, engage the kids in those conversations. And we're not just patting them on the head and making them feel like they're part of it. We're really engaging with them, even though they can't vote, to find out what that is like. And I'll be sure to prepare them and make sure they understand what they're looking at, and hopefully have some reports on different things throughout the year. But yeah, that was kind of my thinking, and I hope that you guys will accept it, and we can go about the process of getting some kids.
Okay. Emily, I know you had a question on Al too.
I did. Thank you. This is really exciting. You know I'm a huge supporter of having
His name was in the book, Emily.
Yeah, I've always felt pretty strongly
Probably
about
several
this
times.
because their voice is really important to the work we do. Two things. One, that credit course that they're taking, is there going to be a connection to the rest of the student body with that? Because to me, that's what's one of the best parts of having the students on the board is them taking information back and bringing information from the body. So will that be part of that curriculum?
So the last thing on here, I wasn't quite sure how to phrase it, was constituency management.
Okay.
And that's one of the things I need to think about how to do that.
Yep.
Our
So I don't
school-
need you to tell me.
Yeah, no, well,
how,
I don't
as
know
long as
the
you
answer
are
right now,
committed
but it's
to it.
something I've been
Yeah.
thinking about and having that in there, because I want them to be able
That's
to own
great.
that, and I want there to be a back and forth.
Yep.
Just like you guys hear from your constituents, I want them to hear from theirs, and they're not gonna be watching the videos and commenting on, what Al's tie looked like, but they should be able to give
he's not
feedback on things that are important to them. That could be articles that you guys are talking about. I think that's where that back and forth is necessary. I just don't know what it looks like yet.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just, as long as your commitment is there. The
Yep.
second thing is, and this is more for the board and for the future, I think, there's been a lot of conversation, especially in the Brattleboro School District, Brattleboro Town, I think, has been talking about students, 16, 17-year-olds having voting rights. And if that ever passed, I know there's legislation that has been submitted. I don't think it's ever been, it hasn't left committee, but it is in committee up there. If that ever happens, does that impact this?
My understanding is you have to be a registered voter on a board in order to vote. So that was what Nicole described to me. So my sense would be that if they were voters, they would have a vote. But I think you guys would be able to have a policy that could manage that if that wasn't something people were comfortable with. And on a related note on that is about the towns too. So we have students who aren't just from the 5
Right.
towns, or 4.5 towns, whatever you want to describe it, that are part of the West River. And if it was a Wardsboro student, for example, who wanted to participate, my feeling would be to let them, even though they don't necessarily live in those 5 towns, because they're still a student legal immigrant, they still represent the student body. That would be something you guys obviously could change or modify depending on what you want to do. But that's something to consider as well as a side angle on that one.
Just wanted to throw it out there for everybody to keep thinking about, because you never know.
Al?
That was exactly my question. Reporting out to peers, how that works.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's-
Rick?
Just to follow up on the voting comment, should that ever happen, with 16, 17-year-olds, I don't know whether that's going to happen in my lifetime, but should that ever happen, it would be my feeling as a general member of the public that unless those individuals are absolutely elected by the constituency, they should never have the right to vote at a meeting. I mean, that's, if they're honest to goodness elected officials, whether 16 or 17-year-olds old, it doesn't matter, but.
Yeah, and if I could just follow on that, it changes if they're voting members, it changes the makeup of our board. So
Right.
we have to really think about that.
We would. Anything else?
So my hope would be that if you guys do approve this, that I would have some member of the board, whether it was Joe, come with Bill perhaps to meet with the student body to kind of talk about this in anticipation of sort of putting out the applications. And then, as I described in here, the 2 people, one for a 2-year term, one for a 1-year term, and then select and get them in here for the next meeting, possibly. But
Okay.
So, are you looking for a motion on this, or are you not?
If we're comfortable enough to move forward with what we've got, then absolutely, I would love a motion to get this in.
So I would love to make that motion, as long as you're ready for it, and as long as we feel like we are ready for it here. Make a motion to support the, let's see, what is this? The memo on student representation on the West River Board,
Second?
based on this memo.
Okay. So now we've got the motion and the second. Is there any further discussion on what we have in front of us?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Assuming this happened, which were to happen by next meeting, what do you think the timeline would be? Like, would you think that the students that were selected, assuming there's interest in all of that, would be able to earn those credits in this
coming school year?
Oh,
or
yeah.
do you think, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Anything else?
I like it. That's all I got.
Yeah. It definitely changes the dynamic on the board. I look forward to it. Okay, we ready to vote? All in favor of the motion to support the memo on student representation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Let's put it in place. I'm happy to come and talk to the student body with Bill or whoever.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so everybody has the principal's reports and the cabinet report. Thank you all for that. If there's any questions after having read through them that you want to follow up with a particular administrator, or if a particular administrator wants to highlight an aspect of their report, now would be the time, folks. I'm like amazed at how much you've got underway. It's very, very thorough reporting. Thank you. Questions, anyone?
C is going to be live.
C is going to be what?
Live.
Oh. Okay.
So,
So you want to talk about you?
I'm gonna
are you cabinet
introduce-
report or C?
we're at C.
All right, we're at C. Beautiful. C.
C, we're at C. Last meeting, the board tasked the administration with coming up with a way to report on culture and climate, specifically at Leland and Gray, as we were embarking on a new structure of creating a middle school 6 through 8, keeping our high school 9 through 12, and wanting to make sure that we keep tabs, what kind of prevention, what kind of preparation, what kind of ongoing reporting would happen. And so Bob and I met with our Dean of Students at Leland and Gray, Miss Johanna Liskowski-Doak. And Johanna's going to introduce some planning and preparation as the Dean of Students in Leland and Gray for the board. And she will also prepare a monthly report for the board. So it'll come just like our regular reports. And we'll see how that goes. If that is not to the board's satisfaction, you want something else, you can let us know, but that's how we're going to start. So Johanna's going to kind of introduce to you kind of the planning about how we're trying to set up our community for success.
Just as soon as the projector. What is on next to this?
While we're waiting for her to get that going, can I ask a question about
Sure.
these reports?
Yes.
Are these online on our website?
Are they on our
The
website?
I'm talking about the principal's reports,
Right.
and then it'll be the dean report as well.
In the past, it has been a little bit hodgepodge, but now that we're all one, our procedure is to just upload those under reports along with the agendas.
I think it's really important. Thank you.
Emily? I also plan on putting it on Facebook, and just for the parents, because I think that, especially as we get going, it'll be a lot more anecdotal as well, and I think that parents really like that, to see what's going on at the school.
Thank you. That's really great.
Is right here okay? It's fine. Okay.
Perfect.
And I
Need
might
an X on the floor.
Yeah. Hi. So, as Bill said, that I understand there's a request to get more information as the year progresses about the climate and culture at Leland and Gray. So, for today's purpose, I'm just going to run through a couple of things that I've been spending some time on with Bob and others. Some things that are new for the school, some programs that have just been revamped a little bit. So that's under the improved slide. And then just a little bit about the goals of why we would do that.
Just to jump in for a quick second, so
Yeah.
those of you who haven't followed all of our positions.
Oh, right.
Johanna went from
There is that.
instructional coach last fall to
Yeah.
become the dean of students mid-year, where we had a counselor leave, and our dean of students became our counselor, and she became dean of students. So she has done this job for the spring semester, and then is obviously doing it into the school year. So she's had some time to see the systems, how they work, how they don't work, what she likes to put for her vision around where we're going to go from here, and really kind of tackle it all. And this summer was really her first opportunity to kind of dig in. So just to frame that.
Right,
yes.
and previously before that, I was the middle school science teacher for 7 years, and then the instructional coach, and now this. And I've gotten really good at moving. Pack it up and move it. So I was just thinking, in the future, this meeting, what I will have to show might look more like data. This is the number of referrals that, we have, but hopefully there will be very few, so it'll be really short. But anyway, so for this purpose, I'll just go through some of these quickly. So some of the new things, we spent time with Mike before he left in June with the middle school team going over common expectations. I can open that link and show you all of them, but I think I'll save you from that. But what we did do was just went through, and the purpose of the common expectations is the behaviors are very clearly spelled out. What is acceptable with your Chromebook, what is acceptable for eating in the classroom, going to your locker, all of the things, but each of them also has a whole lesson plan attached to it. So the teachers are going to be really, really explicit in their teaching and going through, these are the expectations, this is how it looks, we're gonna practice, we're practicing walking down the hallway, like very, very clear about what the expectations are, so there's no question. So that's the first one. Big Rebel, Little Rebel is a mentoring program that I've started organizing, and there's some other teachers who are, I know it's a great name. There's some other teachers who are going to be helping out, but this is with 11th graders are going to be mentoring some 6th graders. So in the spring, 10th graders applied who were interested. I went through the applications and then chose, there's I think 13 of them. So they'll be coming to the opening day when it's just grades 6 through 9. They're gonna help them learn how to open their lockers. They're each assigned a little group, a little cluster of 6th graders. So that'll be really fun. We're excited. There's a couple of high school teachers who are really excited about it. They've got all these ideas of how what the Big Rebels can do with the Little Rebels. So that should be really fun. Trailblazers is very similar. This is the 8th graders. There are some 8th graders that had applied to also be mentors. This program is being run by Caitlin and Carrie, the 2 6th grade teachers, and they actually had a handful of them in school today doing some cute activities. Bob had to name a skill he wasn't good at or something.
There aren't any of those. Something that I had tried that was new.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. So they were doing, the cute get to know you activities and things like that. So the 8th graders, I believe the focus of Trailblazers is going to be to have the 8th graders in during house time with the 6th graders to be sort of mentors during that time of the day. The Rebel Code. Pretty things. The Rebel Code is sort of a phrase that, lots of other schools have like a code of sorts. So we're the Rebels, so we're going to have a Rebel Code. Basically, it's sort of a phrase or a mantra, if you will, to use in the school to talk about what we want the field to be like, what we want students to strive for, what we want the teachers to strive for. And these words were selected by the student body 2 years ago. Not last year, but the year before. So the year before was the first time we ever had the leadership seminar class in the high school, and I co-taught that with Marty, and we had the student body come up with these words and vote on them and all of that. So I'm bringing it back. We're going to have these laminated and hanging in the classrooms, and as the school year progresses, I'm going to work with the students in the leadership class again to define what these look like and what they feel like in the different parts of the building, so we'll get a little bit more into what these things are. But really using these words and these behaviors as things for us to strive for and to keep in mind, and having them around the building as a reminder. The other new thing is these lovely positive postcards. They're just, well, Scotty does them. I've gotten some in the mailbox. It's very exciting. And we know how exciting it is for the kids to get them, so why not do it at the upper grades level also? So on the back it says, "Great job representing Rebel Nation, congratulations and keep up the great work." So just trying to promote the positive. You see kids doing kind, good deeds, nice things. So that's a new item. And the last one is a restorative focus. So in terms of discipline, for those of you who know me, I'm very much an optimist. Generally, I'm pretty positive. So for me to be doing discipline, some people are like, what? But you manage to do both when you have to. But I think, bringing in some of these positive things, and then also I did some restorative stuff in the spring, so a student is sent out or has some, a larger disciplinary problem, really using their return to school as a time to restore with the teacher or whoever else was involved and work through things in a positive manner. So that's something that I'm hoping to incorporate more this year than what was in the past, in the spring anyway. Okay, what's improved? So we have now a curriculum developed for the advisory periods during the day. There's a separate advisory curriculum for 6th grade. Then there's a separate one for 7th and 8th, and a separate one for 9 through 12. The 7 through 12 will probably overlap in some places, but I think we're intending on using advisory more intentionally this year. In the past, we've always had advisory. It's changed a lot since I've been here. Sometimes some years you're told what to do, other years you're not told anything, and everything in between. So this year, sort of going back to, here are the lesson plans, here are the activities, this is what's happening during advisory, and really using advisory to help create community. Whoops. I'm not sure what happened there. It's back. Great.
Just give,
Yes.
what are the kind of 2 focus areas for that, for those lesson plans, right?
Such as?
So some of them are built around climate and culture stuff, right?
Yes.
Leadership and.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right, and then our Sarah Grasso and Terry Davison-Berger are working on a career and college readiness program for the high school. So the advisory in total will be split sort of between the culture and climate activities and then college and career readiness activities. So it's going to be great. I think it sort of fulfills a lot of needs, and builds a full program. So I'm excited to see that happen. We've just changed little things about lunchtime and assemblies. In the past they have had some structure, but we're just looking to improve structure and routine everywhere we go. We know that the more structure and the more routine that there is, the less unknown, the less stressors for students, the less off-task behaviors. So are just putting in place some new policies and procedures for those 2 times. Where things can be less structure, we're putting in more. The referral process, just in terms of what teachers have to do when there is a discipline problem or if something does come up. I've just changed a couple of ways that teachers communicate those things to hopefully make it more streamlined, but also kind of close the loop. There were, getting the information back to teachers quickly. Hopefully this will make that process a little bit faster and more efficient. And we did get 2 new programs for the middle grades math and science. So middle school science now has access to Discovery Education, which is an excellent program. I had actually looked at wanting to purchase it, like 5 years ago. So now that we actually have it, it's great. And math is illustrative. That's right. And that program comes with a lot of interactive tools and manipulatives, yes, for the teachers to use. So that'll be great. And then we also have increased focus on lesson planning, but that's true for all of the schools, right? Everybody's using this plan book. So we'll be able to just pay close attention to the structure and routine of lesson planning and see what, that teachers are honing in on that. And so those are the things. Those are the what's new and what's improved, and the goals, of course, are to increase student engagement in academics and activities in their community, to increase their motivation and their sense of belonging and their academic achievement. We know that our students can achieve great things, so just by hopefully providing more structure and putting some positivity and bringing things alive, we'll get everybody on track. And our phrase for the year is to be consistent and be reflective. So, any questions?
That's
Yeah.
great, thank you.
For the advisory curriculum, you
Yes.
mentioned on the previous slide, so is that going to be, you said it was sort of split into climate and something?
Yep,
And
yep.
then
College and
college
career.
prep, is that going to be the same for middle school and high school? Will the middle schoolers be focusing on college prep?
No.
I think the 7th and 8th grade will do some career stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll start to explore the use of Naviance, which is a tool that they use at the high school level for college searching, for career investigation.
And that happens in the exploratory also,
Right,
personal
for the
development.
personal development class.
Yeah.
So they're digging into that a little bit, but not certainly to the extent that they're doing it at high school. But we
Right.
want to make sure that the career exploration thing is not just a high school thing. Really should be doing that. In fact, I know they are doing it.
They do
in
that.
other schools, the
Yeah.
elementary level as well, so to kind of start it off. So,
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, just what.
Where they
that
get
looked
that.
like. Yeah, what that looked like. for
Right,
middle schools.
yep, and so that, I know that was part of the personal development exploratory class as well, that Phoebe teaches. And Sarah Grasso would help her with some of that instruction. They went into Naviance and looked at careers and took those surveys, things like that. Yeah. And the middle school, the 7th and 8th grade has a different textbook that they're using. Well, it's just for the teachers, the kids don't get a textbook, but it's a different curriculum guide. The name of it is escaping me right now, but we purchased it in the spring for
SOAR.
7th and 8th.
SOAR?
I think that's just for 6th.
Oh, okay.
There's another guide, I can't remember the name of it, but that's for 7th and 8th grade. Yeah.
Allie, you got a question too?
This may be a little too granular, but are we doing anything at the classroom level in terms of like cell phone collection or anything like that?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that because
How is that not on
I
there?
didn't put it in here. I know, I'm not sure. Yes, so we did sort of revamp the cell phone policy and put a little blurb in the letter that went home, and we haven't gotten any phone calls yet, I don't think. And you've probably seen, maybe you're not friends with other high schools on Facebook like I am, but lots of schools are changing their policies to say something like, we are changing our policy to limited use. Phones are not to be used during instructional time. So that's basically what we've gone to. In the past, it's been it's teacher discretion. Teacher can say you can have your phones out. They don't have to tell you to put them away or anything like that. We're going to, phones should be off and away unless otherwise directed. So during instructional time, phones should be gone, not out at all. In high school students can have their phones in common areas when it's not instructional time, so at lunch, in the hallway, that kind of thing. Middle school students still can't, we don't want to see them. If we see a phone, it's taken and brought to the office, and there's no getting it back. The 6th grade teachers were hard and fast on their rule. If a sixth grader has a cell phone or a device, it goes to the office and it stays in the office until a parent comes and gets it. Whereas 7th and 8th grade, the second time that happens, they get like one free day of having it. The teacher holds it and then the student can get it back instead of having to have the parent come get it. So there is sort of a level of flexibility with who can have what cellular device, but all in all, no.
It's really just a changing of the
Just-
of the
it's
default.
like- yeah.
Instead of a default of more openness, the default is no. If teachers want to use it, and I've seen places where they're using their phone to take a picture of inside of a microscope. It can be appropriate times, but
Right.
instead of the default being yes, you can use it until we say no, it's no until you say yes. So it's a minor tweak, but it's one that's going to.
It's a mindset change.
It's a mindset change, but it is going
take
to ruffle some
adjustments.
feathers, and it's going to be interesting to see how it rolls out. But we're absolutely not alone in that approach.
No.
Every time I see a school doing it, I would link her in Facebook so she could see it. She's sending me research reports
And I think that's the key, is there's so much research
Tons of
now
research.
that there's no argument.
It's the distractibility side of it.
Yeah.
The science behind that.
Yeah.
So besides cell phones, any other tweaks that have been made in that regard?
Not really to sort of like handbook rules and policies. No, that was sort of the big one. Yeah. The bigger tweak for me was the referral process for how teachers communicate and how we handle all these things internally, and going and bringing back sort of the restorative, working through things together and communicating about what's happening.
She's been a little bit.
All right.
Can you, thank you very much. Can you share that PowerPoint?
Yes.
Just in
I
case
know, I
anybody
thought
wants
of
to
that
read
when
the
they were-
whole
Yeah, exactly.
link
Right.
of
I would
love
expectations. I knew somebody would want to.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we've been revising the agenda a little bit. This next section is sort of a new.
Whoa,
What?
CII.
Oh, no. I just moved past you.
No.
All right, fine. CII. We have contracts for building use.
Okay, so the WCSU is renting space, 5 spaces from the West River Education District.
Five?
Yes. Can I read them, or would you like to read them?
No. Yeah, please.
Okay. We are renting space at the Jamaica Village School for our special education department. We are renting space at the Newbrook Elementary School for a special education department. We are renting space at the Townsend Elementary School for the early education department. We are renting space at, which one is this? Oh, Leland and Gray for the Director of Operations office. And we are renting space at, well, I already did that one. Oh, and we are renting space at Townsend for the after-school office. The Director of Operations went around and measured all of the spaces and calculated based on square footage and kind of an algorithm of energy usage that would be different from that room not being used. They range from, I think, $900 to $1,200 a year. So it's going to be about a $5,000 revenue for West River, allowing the WCSU to utilize the space that the buildings that you all are responsible for have available. So all this was done by our Director of Operations. I really appreciate all the principals being so helpful, finding usable space so that we don't have to rent it some other place. The place that we're at right now for the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union is extremely tight, and just one of those things.
I don't know, what kind of tenant will you be?
We're gonna find out.
We'll find out. I'm sure we'll hear.
I'll need somebody to make a motion for the chair to sign these leases.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion of these? They're just all single-year leases, one annual payment, middle of the year, all-inclusive. Anybody wants to see it? Yes, ma'am.
Just one comment, well, one question, one comment. First of all, I think this is great for having our central office staff in our buildings is, for whatever reason, is a really good thing. So, thank you. That's number one. Number two, are you also renting space in River Valleys or anything like that? Or Marble or anything?
We are not right
Okay.
now.
Just ask.
We have to calculate in distance and travel and try to be the most efficient with where we locate those things.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you for doing this.
This is the director of operations. This is the beauty of that position. I can say, here's the challenge. Give me a matrix, give me a metric, figure it out, draw up the lease.
And the income's actually only gonna be 48% of that total.
Right. You pay.
We have to pay you for space.
But it's clean.
This is from the left pocket to the right pocket.
It is.
Right.
In a lot of ways.
All right.
All right, so.
Mike made the motion.
Yep, Mike made the motion, Lindsay seconded it. Any further discussion, questions, anything? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. We're landlords.
And then before we get to number 7, I got something in the mail. I guess I should have done this during correspondence. I didn't think about it. But I'll just pass this around. But we got this nice little picture of new West River Education babies. And I don't know who sent it to me. It had no return address. But any time a child is born in one of the 5 towns that this board represents, we send them a welcome letter, and we send them a onesie. And so, I just thought I'd share that with you all.
My granddaughter has one of these, even though she doesn't.
Oh, you had a little.
It was purchased for her.
You have a little.
It's wonderful. I have a photo of it wearing it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then number.
Give it a onesie.
I would accept one.
Okay.
That's so adorable.
I don't
No, we didn't get one.
Well, it only started 2 years ago.
Oh,
In
so
all
just have another
seriousness,
kid.
is this
My
something we can
5-year-old
get
is in
paid?
like a 6'7".
Yeah, I would have made that. I would have made that choice too. You know, if you really want the onesie, there is a way. There's a path.
This is fantastic.
All right, so
It's a feel good. It's a feel good.
what?
I think this should be in the paper.
It's really easy. Just
feel good
scan it and send it.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, these
you
are
know,
babies' pictures.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know whose the babies are.
So a little behind the scenes part.
But you
But
can
maybe I
without a
can
face.
prepare for
Yeah, if we can find out, we could get that published. You're right. That would be wonderful.
That's great.
Finally, some good press.
Good press.
Yeah.
Was CI. Johanna was number 7. That's fine.
Right. Right. So we've been tweaking the agenda a little bit, and there's like the italic stuff that'll come out perhaps on the agenda after the retreat. But so do we have anything that we want to task administration, either superintendent and staff or principal specific, for the next meeting or future meeting? You know, is there something else we're interested in? We've got it broken down into task, due date, and deliverables. There doesn't necessarily have to be something, you know, and really we had tasked them with the culture and climate. How are we going to keep our finger on the pulse of this as we change the culture at our school? And we got an excellent delivery there. You know, schools, yes. So is there anything moving forward that we need for the next meeting? I suspect more will come to that.
Well, and the reason I
At
put it
retreat.
on here is I wanted you to all, when you left, so you could think about that in between meetings. You can, when you're at the retreat, kind of start thinking about that. When you guys gave us that task at the last meeting, I thought it was important that we just make that part of our routine business. So that
That's great.
it's always on the agenda. You guys know what you've asked for. We know what you expect. And then the stuff below that is stuff that the officers talked about when they were planning the retreat. And so I just wanted to put them on there to give you guys a thoughtful preview when you get to the retreat. That's what it would look like if that's the kind of thing you guys would want to do.
Right. Yes?
I'm just sort of thinking out loud right now, but a lot of the work that happens in school buildings is cyclical. And some things are appropriate for certain times of year. So, you know, I'm trying to think of some example I can give, but I think you all, I see nods over there from people who are working in these buildings all the time. It's really important to me that we recognize there are appropriate times for us to be getting feedback. So I would also ask for this to be a two-way sort of thing, because I may not know something that's really important to ask. But if you know something that's happening that you want to make sure that we know, or you as well, this could be sort of a two-way thing. There are always really important things that are happening throughout the school year. And I'll just say one other quick thing.
Mm-hmm.
The proficiency-based education, at some point, I'd love to see us go down that path a little more than we have in the past. I don't know when that's appropriate, I'm not going to get rush, but I do think that it's really important for us to stay on top of all of that.
So it's, I mean, we could just say as a task, update on proficiency-based
Yeah.
education. Due date is, you know, as appropriate. And, you know, in a month or two, if we haven't heard anything, it's like, when do we expect to hear something?
So I'm just really mindful of the work that's going on in buildings, especially at the beginning of the school year. So I'm not in any rush. I only put that out there as an example of something that I would love to have us have an opportunity to talk more about. So timing is not.
Well, and in fact, you guys are going to have to adopt a policy.
Right. For the 2020 graduating class.
All right. Scotty, you had something to...
I just had a question about the communication. Is it appropriate for a principal to email all of you en masse to invite you to events? Because that was something that I always felt comfortable doing with my last board, and I would really like to be comfortable doing that with you. And that doesn't, I don't want you guys to feel like oh God, I have to go to another thing, but I would like you to be aware of it, because and some things will like tug on your strings and other things won't. You know, you might be interested in one thing or not another, and that's all fine, but I would love to be able to just remind you guys of the things that are happening. Is that appropriate, or is that...
Yeah,
I
don't
would
think
say
it's
it's
inappropriate at
absolutely
all.
appropriate, and I know what Townsend's Facebook pages are, but if you guys have separate Facebook pages for individual schools, please send those out, and we can join.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
So do you think it might be valuable to just include those on your reports? And then if something came up that wouldn't naturally fall in that you can go ahead and send it to me. And then, because I might be getting 3 or 4, so that you guys aren't getting pinged with 8 different things. And then I could collect it out. So there could be, so an expectation would be, in your principal's report, just add what's coming up in before the next meeting. And then if something happens in between that, if you hit me, I will be able to collect that and then send it out one thing to the board. Is that,
More streamlined.
Yeah.
is that good? Okay. Thanks, Scott.
I still want to see the Facebook pages, though.
That,
Yeah.
That's where the-
I'm not touching that.
That's where
That's
the
all
rubber
you
meets the
guys.
road.
You still go see the Facebook page.
You just have to like that page. Yeah, I just gotta
Yeah.
know what it is. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So we're to the consent agenda. Unless we need to pull the, the minutes are, there's a typo. It's 6/9, 7/15, and 8/6 are the minutes. And then there's the pay orders that were reviewed by both Al and I, and we signed off on them. So unless somebody wants to pull something out for a correction.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Beautiful. We do not need an executive session, right?
We do not.
Okay.
So you have a meeting on September 3rd,
Wait, yeah.
An information meeting about the bond vote.
information meeting. And then on the 4th is the retreat. It'll be at the Townsend second story, 9 to 4. Townsend Hall. Okay. Again, food will be catered by the West River Chefery. And hopefully it will not be really, really hot that day.
Townsend respectfully request that you do not park in front of the town hall.
I think that is a very polite request. In fact, an email went out today.
We're parking back of the town hall? Those are the leases.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, guys. Very efficient.
Oh, yeah, September 3rd is at 7 PM, just like always. It's a board information meeting on the bond vote. You know, we'll just be explaining what's going on with the revote of the financing to allow us to do a bond rather than commercial financing. So hopefully it won't be a big meeting. And then September 4th, the retreat is 9 to 4 at Town Hall.
If the
Yes.
My question was if the public wanted to come to the retreat for any reason to, like, I don't know, say stuff? Or is that a thing or no? Just out of curiosity.
It's a public
meeting.
meeting. I mean,
Come on
we're
if you want.
staying on the agenda
Yep.
and,
Hopefully
you
if they're
know.
gonna be for the lunch, let us know.
Yeah, if they want to get fed, they have to.
I
let
have a
us know early.
question.
Sure.
I do.
Okay, this
Emily
information
does
meeting.
too.
Mine's related.
Are we warning this information meeting as an information meeting on the meeting or on a vote? Because we had to warn it as a meeting, not a vote.
We will get whatever language the attorney tells us to do in the warning and warn it that way.
Okay, just reminding me, that's why we had to redo it. Because we had to change the wording.
Well, it's because we have it for a bond versus finance.
We had to
The way we
redo it
finance it.
because the financing was different and we had to publish it 3
But you
times
warned
and
it
in
as a
5
meeting, not a
places.
vote.
That
Which we
wasn't
have
the
to.
question. That wasn't the problem. That wasn't the
Well,
deficiency in our
well, it will
financing.
be a problem if you warn it as a vote and it's a meeting, or as if it's a meeting and it's a vote.
Emily, your question?
Yeah, we had a conversation about this at the last meeting about how we're going to get information out there to the communities, and I recognize we're having an information meeting. Was there a plan to have a little article in the paper, in the paper record, or anything like that? Maybe even, we talked about Facebook pages, but it's just a little quick update on the Facebook page. All I'm trying to say is that this is a bit confusing for folks, and I want to make sure that everybody understands what we're asking for. This is not an impact on our budget. This is making sure that we can get this amazingly great grant for what, 200,000?
Yeah.
200,000.
Which is really significant in saving us money. And I just want to make sure that our communities understand, especially in light of what Ken just said, if there's any confusion around between meeting and actual all-day voting, that kind of thing. I just want to make sure that we are getting out there ahead of time because we know our information meetings are not all that well attended.
Right.
So can we ensure that we have information out there in whatever way possible prior?
We can put a summary blurb thing on, we can ask everybody to put it on Facebook pages and publish it on our webpage. I figured as it got closer, I would contact the reformer and see if I could get Chris to write a piece just explaining why we're having another vote kind of thing.
And the comments too, maybe?
Yeah. I
That would be
don't
cool.
know anyone at the Commons as
Jeff
well,
Potter.
but I think I can get hooked up. Yeah, I will
That'd be
definitely do
great.
that.
I just want to make sure
I would love to
people
see some
understand.
newspaper coverage just explaining why we're doing this.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a question?
That. Let's do that.
We will do that. Anything else? Other business? One last motion? All right. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Run. Thank you all.